Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Banyule City Council meeting for the 27th of April 2020. I'm opening the meeting at 7 p.m. And before I pass you on to the CEO, who will read out the formalities, I would like to acknowledge tonight that we are joined by our new Director of Community Programs, Kath Brackett. So, Kath, welcome. Kath comes with extensive local government experience, most recently holding the position as the Director of Community Wellbeing at the City of Brimbank, and previously in leadership roles at Brimbank, Maribyrnong and Melbourne Council. So welcome, Kath. It's lovely to have you on board with us. Thank you.
Welcome to the North.
Welcome to the North. And I am now going to hand you over to our CEO, Alison Beckwith.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome all. This is the ordinary meeting of Council. My name is Alison Beckwith and I am the Chief Executive Officer. Before we start, there are some housekeeping items that I just need to take you through. The Victorian Government has declared a state of emergency across the entire state in response to the COVID-19. Council is prioritising the health, safety and wellbeing of our staff and residents in all our decisions regarding the management of our services. Council has taken the following steps to ensure compliance with the Government's new COVID-19 Stage 3 rules for gatherings. Members of the public must not attend the meeting. There have been no provisions made to accommodate members at this meeting. We are keeping the meeting open and accessible online. The Council meeting will be live streamed via our website and Facebook pages so that residents do not have to attend to participate. The live stream will allow you to tune in at any time and re-watch any part of the public meeting at your convenience wherever you have internet access. As you will be able to see tonight, we have spaced out our seating to meet the minimum of at least 1.5 metres social distancing. Council's request to speak process has been amended, requiring those who requested to speak at tonight's meeting to submit their statements to be read out on their behalf. Therefore, statements will be read out prior to the consideration of each item. Public health recommendations are that meetings of more than 2 hours increase the risk of transmission of the virus. Therefore, public questions will no longer be read at the conclusion of the meeting to help reduce the duration of this meeting. Public questions and the corresponding answers will be, however, included in the minutes. We thank you for tuning in tonight and for adapting with these rapidly changing times. We are continuing to monitor announcements and warnings for health and safety of our community and will keep you updated. So rules for public participation during the request to speak process is that no question or statement may be derogatory, defamatory or directed to an individual, councillor, member of staff, ratepayer or member of the public. Statements read tonight have been amended to comply with this. A 3-minute time limit applies to all statements. A warning will sound at the 2.5-minute mark, and if required, the person reading the statement will sum up in the last 30 seconds. Any comments or private messages directed to us while we are live streaming will not be presented to Council and will not have any bearing on the conduct of this meeting. So just to now introduce you to those in participating tonight. So from your right, Kath Brackett, Director of Community Programs, Mark Gilio, Director of Corporate Services, Councillor Tom Malikan, Councillor Peter Castaldo, Councillor Craig Langdon, the Mayor, Alison Champion, Councillor Mark Di Pasquale, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Rick Garotti, Councillor Wayne Phillips and Scott Walker, Director of City Development. To my left is Gina Burden, Manager of Governance and Communication, and Emily Outlaw, Council's Business Team Leader. Also in the room tonight we have Vivian Filano, who's our Governance Coordinator. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Our meeting is being held this evening on the traditional land of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people. And on behalf of Banyule City Council, I wish to acknowledge them as the traditional custodians. I would also like to pay my respects to the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung elders, past, present and emerging, and to acknowledge other Aboriginal and Torres Strait elders who are joining us here today. Do we have any apologies or leave of absence this evening? There are none. Okay, can I have a confirmation of the minutes for the ordinary meeting of Council held on the 6th of April 2020? Can I have a councillor move? Councillor Tom Melican, can I have a seconder please? Councillor Craig Langdon. I put that in motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Are there any disclosures of interests at all? Okay, there are none. All right, any urgent business at all? Okay, there is no urgent business. There are no petitions before Council this evening. Going on to item 3.1, Maternal and Child Health Sleep Settling Initiative. There are two speakers. Now, statements have been provided by each submitter or speaker, and they will now be read out by either our CEO, Alison Beckwith, or Director of City Development, Scott Walker. So we're starting with Rosamond Krivonek to be read out by Alison Beckwith.
Thank you, Mayor. This statement's on behalf of Rosamond Krivonek from West Heidelberg. I support this item in accordance with the reasons provided under background and funding implications. However, I consider that the report's Human Rights Charter statement needs to be more specific to the matter to be decided. It should identify the relevant matters in accordance with the Human Rights Charter and say how Council intends to address them through the proposed initiative. Section 38 of the Victorian Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities 2006 states, 1. Subject to this section, it is unlawful for a public authority to act in a way that is incompatible with the human right or in making a decision to fail to give proper consideration to a relevant human right. 2. Subsection 1 does not apply if, as a result of statutory provision or a provision made by or under an Act of the Commonwealth or otherwise under law, the public authority could not reasonably have acted differently or made a different decision. Section 2 does not apply to the current decision. The human rights most relevant to the current decision are the protection of families and children, Section 17, and cultural rights, Section 19. In approving and implementing this initiative, it is relevant to consider whether it will attract the clientele most in need of the service and whether the proposed staffing arrangements outlined on page 6 of the report have the capacity to respond appropriately to a range of cultural settings. Thank you for the opportunity to make this statement.
Right. Thank you very much, Alison. On behalf of Rosamond Krivonek and our Director of City Development, Scott Walker, will present David Mulholland's argument.
Thanks, Mayor. This statement's been read out on behalf of David Mulholland of Heidelberg Heights. I'm speaking as a father to a wonderful one-year-old baby girl, Isabella. We are extremely happy with the Maternal Child Health Service. Their advice is invaluable. Their care, manner and attention to the children is second to none. The need is out there in the community for this service and the MCH are best positioned to deliver it. There have been many nights and early mornings when I or my wife Sophie have had to settle Bella, and any new skills that this service can impart will be valuable or will be valued. We're transitioning her from 2 to 1 naps at the moment, and it's a challenge for us. The cot to bed transition will be coming likely just in time for this service to kick off, so we'll be definitely utilising a few consultations very soon. It's terrific to see that this new service is fully funded by the state government. However, Council must be extremely conscious of future cost shifting by the government, as we've seen in programs such as the School Crossing program, which Banyule mayors have been fighting for fair funding for the last decade. I fully support this new initiative and our MCH team to deliver it.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Scott, on behalf of David Mulholland. Can I have a councillor move a motion, please? Yes, go ahead.
In regard to the first contribution by Rosamond, should we improve our Charter of Human Rights section, or is that... She raises some valid points there. I don't want it to be missed, that's all. Should we do more on that? That's all. I'm not sure who's in charge of it, but should we cover the points that are being made there?
CEO Alison Beckwith.
Through you, Mayor, we have a section in the human rights that relates to human rights in each of our reports. In this case, the officers should have expanded on the human rights that it is actually impacting on, but it's actually in support of the human rights, ensuring that we've got good program provision for those in need.
Okay. Thank you. Can I have a councillor move a motion, please? Councillor Peter Castaldo, can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Rick Garotti. Councillor Peter, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
This is great new initiative taken on and supporting council by the DHHS. This is a service that is very much useful and helpful to new parents. I'm a father of 2 new children under 3 years of age, and sleep is one of those things you can't possibly know how to deal with it until you're in there. And having expert advice and support provided by council is a wonderful opportunity to assist our parents of Banyule. So I think this is an excellent program. Very happy to support this, and I look forward to the opportunity to maybe have one consult in there with them, because as all parents do, we all struggle with this matter.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Rick, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the item? Nope. Okay. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Craig.
Just taking up one of the other points is that there is often cost shifting from the state and federal governments. They offer to fund something for X number of years, and once it's established and everyone thinks it's a great benefit, suddenly the funding ceases and we do pick it up. But we've been doing that for decades, and I suspect it'll still happening in decades' time, no matter who's in government.
Thank you. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the item? No? Okay. As a parent of now teenagers, I remember this, I haven't forgotten, and it gets easier. And many thanks to the MCH for their work. I now put in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Item 5.1. 59 Kelvin Avenue, Montmorency, development of 3 dwellings. We have 2 speakers or submitters. Could I please ask CEO Alison Beckwith to read out the first submitter, Rosamond Krivenek, please?
Thanks, Mayor. This statement's being read on behalf of Rosamond Krivenek from West Heidelberg. Banyule's residential vehicle crossing policy 2012 states on page 3, the incremental loss of street trees, reduced nature strips and changes to their rhythm along streets is associated with the incremental increase and size of vehicle crossings along Banyule residential streets. In addition, implications for on-street parking, pedestrian safety, traffic safety, stormwater and infrastructure impacts also need to be considered. No proper basis is cited for permitting an additional vehicle crossing. The planning report indicates an intention to establish a general exemption for development in this area, in brackets, a strategic basis for policy variation, ordinary agenda PDF, page 26 of 91. It gives no express consideration to the incremental and cumulative effects of the additional crossings on stormwater runoff and drainage infrastructure. It does not adequately consider the incremental and cumulative effects on amenity and safety for pedestrians of all ages and abilities, including those using mobility aids and young children using wheeled devices that result from adding unnecessary vehicle crossings. The current application does not meet the criteria of uniqueness or complexity for allowing an exemption to the Residential Vehicle Crossing Policy 2012, PDF 7 of 20. The planning report does not state that the additional crossover is necessary or justified by the limitations of the site. If exemptions are allowed for a generously sized block and with just 3 dwellings, the precedent will encourage many costly applications to VCAT by developers pursuing a similar outcome. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alison. And I'm asking Director of Corporate Services, Mark Giglio, to read out our second submitter, Kevin Biagini, please.
Yeah, just speaking on behalf of Kevin Biagini of Ivanhoe, who is speaking for the item. As a member of BRAG, the Banyule Ratepayers Action Group, I fully support the application for development of 3 dwellings at 59 Kelvin Avenue, Montmorency. I have opposed inappropriate development in Banyule over time, as has BRAG, but in this case we feel that it is totally appropriate development. The most important overriding thing is the placement of the property with respect to the main street and the public transport hub. The best evidence is given in the executive summary, from which I shall quote. While the proposal is located within a limited incremental area, the subject site is approximately 120 metres north of Montmorency train station and the adjoining local activity centre. As such, there is an emerging character of multi-unit developments interspersed between older brick housing. It is considered that this development proposal should be supported, subject to the modifications to improve the response to the neighbourhood character. We feel that the developer and architects involved in this development are a respectable group of people who only engage in quality work that will stand for a long time. Montmorency deserves no less. The present dwelling is not in the best condition, and Kelvin Avenue would benefit from a quality development replacing the original dwelling. This development application would support that need. The request for a second crossing is a reasonable one, given the nature of the development, the outstanding features of Kelvin Avenue, and also the fact that the frontage of number 59 is just under 22 metre guideline.
Thank you very much, Mark. There is an alternate recommendation to the papers. Could I ask a councillor read that out, please? Councillor Wayne.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to move that Council having complied with section 52, 58, 60, 61 and 62 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit in respect of application P 1002/2019 for multi-unit development, the construction of 3 dwellings on a lot, removal of a protected vegetation within the Vegetation Protection Overlay, Schedule 1, and building and works greater than 8 metres in height and within the drip line of the protected vegetation within the Design and Development Overlay, Schedule 8 at 59 Kelvin Avenue, Montmorency, subject to the following conditions. And I don't intend to read all the conditions, but what I do intend, with your permission, is to say 1 on the printed document as is, A as is. If you want me to read it, I will. A as is, B as is, B1 as is, a change to C, saying the following changes shown on plans received by Council on the 24th of April 2020. 1. The front porch reduced in depth by 350 mil, and D. Removal of tree number 3. E as is, F as is, G as is, H as is, I as is, J as is, K as is, L as is, M as is, N as is, O as is, P as is, Q as is, R as is, S as is, T as is, U as is, V as is, no W, or X, Y, Z, so V as is, V1 as is, V2 as is, V3 as is, V4 as is, V5 as is, V6 a change or an add-in, internal drainage within the front yard located adjacent to dwelling 1, so the planting space is maximised. With a please note that the engineering plans must show all protected and or retained trees on the development site on adjoining properties where tree canopies encroach the development site, and along proposed outfall drain and roadway alignments where applicable, and every effort must be made to locate services away from the canopy drip line of trees, and where unavoidable, details of handwork or trenchless installation must be provided. 2, as printed, with a new A, provision of either one large native canopy tree greater than 12 metres. I suggest that might read provision of one large canopy tree to grow greater than 12 metres. Knowing our officers, they could take that literally as it's read, or 2 medium native canopy trees to grow 8 to 12 metres within the front yard to replace the removal of tree 3, claret ash. The remainder of the recommendations as per the papers. I'll so move.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there a seconder for this item? I'm happy to second that. Councillor Wayne, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you. I would. Can I say this is not one that has gained my support easily, but ultimately it has gained my support because it's been in the system for a long time, and there's been some negotiations over the last number of weeks between the officers on behalf of myself and the applicant in reference to trying to get a slightly better outcome than what's being proposed. Montmorency, as you know, Mayor, because you represent part of it as I do, is different. And we're not saying it's better, but it's different to areas of other parts of the city. It's different because the topography, in some cases, it's different. It goes from undulating to very steep. It's different because there is sometimes not only one significant tree worth protection, but many significant trees on the blocks of land that are worth protection, as is the case throughout the whole of the Montmorency area and Briar Hill, unlike some of the other areas which are completely denuded of trees, and Council's regeneration program is introducing trees back into some of the areas where there is no trees. So those considerations, both in flora and fauna, makes it a lot more difficult for developers to come along and put on the number of units that they would like initially to put on, and I'm sure there would have been some suggestion of more than 3 units. I think it's about a 2.5 unit site, but it's very difficult to go to 2 units or up to 3, and the applicant has tried to maximise the opportunity. It is the 2 speakers, or the initial 2 speakers, that letters that was read out by both support and opposition to, I agree with both of them. One was in reference to the two driveways and taking up nature strip opportunities, taking up parking within the street, a whole range of things. And the other one talked about, close to the station, and therefore we should be trying to do a little bit different, close to shopping centres, close to, walking distance to, to trains and services, where we should be providing good quality dwellings. In this particular case, it meets both of those criteria. There has been some concern raised with the officers about probably we should have been tougher from the initial application, and there's going to be some additional conversations in reference to how can we be a bit more consistent. So we're sending back a consistent message to the applicant and telling him exactly what council wants from day one. And that way I think it would make it better for council, and it would be better for the applicant, and also the residents would then know where they stand. But in summary, I'm going to support it in this particular case, but it's one of those ones that it could have gone 50-50, both not only in officer's recommendation, but in the recommendation from the ward councillor.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, councillor. As the seconder, I won't speak to the item. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the item? Councillor Peter?
Well, I wasn't part of the initial conversations that led to this planning outcome. I think it is important that council abide by policies we've set. In terms of crossovers, we have a crossover policy to reduce the visual impact of driveways and hard surfaces, and visual impact of additional dwellings on properties. I'm not against, in this case, the additional residential dwellings on the property, but can't see the reason why it's necessary or beneficial into either the neighbourhood character or the quality of the housing there that would encourage the departure from our policy on the two crossovers. So from that perspective, I cannot agree with this permit acceptance, and I'll be voting against this one this evening based on following a policy that was developed for good reason, and unless there's a very good reason to depart from that policy, and it wasn't articulated here, I cannot support this.
Thank you, councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay, I now put that in motion. All those in favour?
I won't sum up, it's okay.
Okay. All those against? That is carried. Item 5.2, new Telstra payphones and electronic signage in various locations. There are 3 speakers or submitters. We have 3 against. Our first submitter, Brian Grace, is going to be read out by Director of Corporate Services, Mark Giglio.
Yeah, on behalf of Brian Grace of Greensborough, I'm speaking against the item. Good Governance Banyule does not see any community benefit or betterment from the installation of a giant Telstra TV screens. That is all these signs are, all these things are. In regards to the conversations with the community, there have been none, not one. No shopkeepers or residents have been spoken to by council. To the community members I've spoken to, none are in favour of these giant screens being placed near their shop or home. In a year that is an election year, upsetting the neighbourhoods will not go down well. The federal court has clearly left the decisions to plant these things in our community up to the respective councils. Good Governance Banyule asked the voting councillors to reject this as a bad idea or move them away from where the local residents and shops cannot be upset by the constant blinking of the screens. There is a reason why every council in Australia has rejected these screens. We ask Banyule Council to follow what all the other councils in Australia have done and reject outright these screens.
Thank you, Director Mark. CEO Alison Beckwith will read out second submitter, Kevin Biagini.
Thank you, Mayor. This is being read on behalf of Kevin Biagini from Ivanhoe, who's against the recommendation tonight. I oppose the installation of the payphones and electronic signage. I cannot see any reason to install a payphone anywhere these days except to hang some electric signage on the payphone cabinet. No one uses a payphone to justify the installation of such a device. Nearly the entire population past the age of reason uses a mobile phone. That is fact. Telstra wish to get this type of advertising installed in our city. Only a few places at first, but I am sure that a number would increase. Telstra will, I believe, later on attempt to use the signage to advertise other things besides Telstra. The electronic signage will be a road hazard as it will distract drivers. We have not needed such things in Banyule before, and we certainly won't need them in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison. And the third speaker, Director of Corporate Services, Mark Giglio, will read the submission for Anthony Hocking.
Yes, speaking on behalf of Anthony Hocking of Greensborough, who's speaking against the motion. I wish to speak against the motion. Further to my comments from the previous two meetings, this issue was discussed and background information I gave to councillors. I would add the following. This is little more information in the report regarding community benefit than the last one. A figure of $5,000 per year per installation has been mentioned, but cannot be confirmed re commercial in confidence unless Telstra agrees to release the information. The same goes for what amount of proponents expect to make in advertising profit over a year. There is no information about what community group ads would be shown and their value. No indication of what 5,000 of community notices would be, re amount of ads time shown, so no ability to assess the percentage of corporate revenue they would sacrifice for the community quid pro quo. On the question re a proposal to move an installation of 78 Nepean Street to a less intrusive position in a shopping strip, the report states that this would not be feasible with regard to the service connection. However, this shopping strip has one manhole and a 3 PMA/Telstra inspection lid running the length of the path along the shops to service phones in all the shops, as one would expect. Telstra's claim has no credibility, but has not been checked by council. Re status of councils, cities of Whittlesea and Kingston have issued permits for one installation each, both about 12 months ago. Bayside just 5, with Telstra withdrawing about 3. Other councils mentioned have approved none. Suggestion has been made that Telstra may go ahead and install with just their own ads, for which a council permit is not needed, if council refuses permits. Have they tried this bluff on other councils? Would it be commercially viable for them to do so? Applications re Vic roads are still undecided due to road safety concerns. On principle, council should not approve any of them. Pragmatically though, applications at Diamond Village Shops, Greville Road, Rosanna, Martins Lane Viewbank and probably Norman Road, Ivanhoe should still be rejected due to the commercial interfaces with residential areas and the impact on those residents. Other applications not impacting residents could be approved as a compromise to put council in a stronger position if Telstra challenged at VCAT. However, other councils' current positions need to be reassessed properly, but this has not been explained in the report. I do agree with the proposition that all these should be approved. No one on council would be pleased to have one of these installed 25 metres from their home.
Thank you very much. There is an alternate recommendation to the papers. Could I ask a councillor to please read that out?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move an alternative recommendation in respect of recommendations A, B and C from the officers. And I think I might just read that out. That Council, having complied with section 52, 58, 60, 61 and 62 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, resolves to issue a refusal to grant a planning permit in respect of application numbers P105/2019, P110/2019, P112/2019, P113/2019, P115/2019, P116/2019, P117/2019, P119/2019 for display of electronic promotion sign in conjunction with Telstra Smart City phones at 40 Norman Street, Ivanhoe, 48 Aberdeen Road, McLeod, 35 Watsonia Road, Watsonia, 57 Greville Road, Watsonia, 65 Watsonia Road, Watsonia, 69 Martins Lane, Viewbank, 78 Nepean Street, Watsonia, and 111 Mountain View Road, Briar Hill, on the following grounds. Point 1, that the promotional content of the electronic signage would be detrimental to the character of the area and adversely impact the amenity of the area, contrary to clause 22.01/outdoor advertising policy and clause 52.02 signs of the Banyule planning scheme. So moved, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mark, you are seconding the item. Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll make a couple of brief comments to note that for the benefit of those that are watching in this evening, this alternative recommendation basically means that the council will be knocking it back entirely. So this council will be resolving, hopefully with the support of my colleagues, that we're knocking back all of those permit applications. And in essence, we've come to that decision on the basis that it's contrary to the character of our community and our neighbourhood. And as a council, we can't see the benefit there in terms of enhancement to the neighbourhood or a reasonable return for our community by permitting that imposition on the neighbourhood. There's been some, I just want to pick up on one comment from one of the speakers, quoting that in an election year, upsetting the neighbourhoods will not go down well. I just want to state for the record that I never act in terms of election years or election cycles. That might be up to people who are submitting statements and potential candidates for council, but every item, regardless of the timing that it comes to council, it's always about what is in the best interest of the community. And I can honestly say that when we look at this independently and unbiasedly, we form a view that approval of those permits does not enhance the Banyule community and is not in the interests of our community. And that's the framework that always guides my decision making, and I know that's the framework that always guides the decision making of this council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rick. Councillor Mark, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would. I would like to second and would like to support Councillor Garotti's amended recommendation. Firstly, when I was looking at this and found out about these payphones and advertising signs, etc., I was looking probably selfishly in the Bakewell area because I'm the Bakewell representative, and that is the Diamond Village, and that was the Diamond Village shopping centre where, for residents who remember Vic Roads, was the old Vic Roads site, Mayor? Now Vic Roads is out at Uni Hill over Bundoora Way, but Vic Roads was in the Watsonia area for many years and the payphone was outside there, and this proposal here is to actually replace that payphone in that same location. Now over the years since that payphone has been installed, which is many, many years ago, the Diamond Valley Shopping Centre really doesn't act the same way. The more people are down the lower end, entrance to the supermarket, the bakery, cafe, etc. So that would be a better location. So I was looking at that selfishly, Mayor, but then, and I wanted it relocated. If this was to go ahead, I definitely wanted it relocated into that area. Then looking at the community in Banyule broadly, I saw that I had a bit of a look at the different areas and then also investigated a little bit more closely at how Telstra were, like what they were offering to the community, Mayor. And in looking at it, only 3 of these locations have Wi-Fi access. Not all of them do. They're basically in the old locations where the payphones are, so no real, thought has gone to could we relocate them? Where's a better place for a phone or a device or Wi-Fi access, etc. So really, Telstra haven't, in my opinion, Telstra haven't been responsible as the monopoly on the industry to come to council, to come to the community, consult and say where should these phones be? Should they have Wi-Fi? Should they not? What should the advertising be? How should it look? How will it affect the community? All these things that any planning permit and application should go through, consultation, hasn't been done. So for those reasons, and for one very important reason too, Mayor, what was the deal breaker for me in not supporting these is that if you don't have a Telstra account, you can't use the Wi-Fi on the ones that have Wi-Fi. So if a resident has an Optus account or Vodafone, or if they don't have a SIM card in their child's iPad or anything like that, the Wi-Fi access can't be used. So that's just not community benefit, in my opinion. So thank you very much for the speakers who contributed. Mr Hocking, thank you very much to keeping it right on 3 minutes. You're exceptional. And also thank you very much to the team and staff too. Thank you, Joel, out there as well. I really do appreciate it for all your time and commitment, giving me information. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor, for keeping your 3 minutes too. That's good. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the item? Councillor Craig Langdon.
I speak knowing that none of these applications are currently in the Olympia ward, and I accept that fact. I just want to comment that Diamond Village has changed dramatically, and that should have been part of the consideration. But the most important point I wanted to advise that I thought the officers did an exceptionally good job, because part of the permit conditions was no gambling advertising or political advertising. I think that's taking a leaf from our policies that they weren't going to promote that, because I'd find nothing worse to have gambling advertising on a telecommunications signage or any signage that we have any say over whatsoever.
Thank you, councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Peter.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in full alignment with my fellow councillors this evening. They've all contributed something important here. Having a principled approach to reviewing these is absolutely critical. And Telstra definitely haven't demonstrated a collaborative or consultative approach to negotiating with the community, and in this case through Banyule City Council. It's the only way this community can negotiate a good outcome out of this. Now, in terms of what they contribute, a number of things that they were trying to offer was the ability to have some airtime on it. As a council, we could have got up to around 1/20th or 5% of the airtime on these signs, and that would have been about the only benefit to our community. They were also offering emergency notifications, but that is hardly of high value in normal times. At the moment, perhaps more so. And on those grounds, I think that when a business comes with a proposition to council on council land that we're supposed to bat for our residents, they haven't offered anywhere near high enough community contribution to overcome the cost to the community of that visual, what some call graffiti, in our public spaces. And there's a place for digital signage, and maybe Piccadilly Circus or Times Square, or maybe city centres, but we don't want it in our urban streets. It's not necessary, and leads to increased clutter on the streets that just doesn't contribute to the overall amenity of our area. So I will also be in full agreement with the new proposition put forward by Councillor Garotti.
Thank you, councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Thom.
Thank you. Yes, I'd just like to make a few comments here. There's two issues here. What is the benefit to the community? And as we've heard, the benefit is quite limited. I was disappointed to find out the two in my ward today. I assumed they were going to have Wi-Fi access, but I found out today the two in my ward won't have Wi-Fi access, which I think is the only real community benefit we could actually look at for these things. These aren't phone boxes, these are advertising signs on council land. And we could justify allowing that to happen if we could see the benefit, but as you can hear tonight, there is no real community benefit in these. And the other thing is the location. Telstra have agreed today that they're willing to sit down with council and residents to talk about the location to find the best location. That should have been done prior to tonight, so that's a bit disappointing that hasn't happened to date. But this has been done under the 1997 Communication Act, and the world has changed since then. Telstra were given provisions in that Act to enable them to install phone boxes on council land without going through all the red tape. That was in the day before mobile phones were taken up in large numbers. And it's changed since then. And they're using the provisions of that Act to now put advertising on our land. And I just don't think that's right. If the community benefit was there, if they could locate them so they wouldn't impact on residents, then maybe we could consider it. But I don't think that's the case in Easton. So I'll be supporting that tonight because I really just don't see the community benefit in the way it's been designed, and the lack of Wi-Fi access, I think, is a real deal breaker with these signs.
Thank you, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay. Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like a right of reply?
I might just sum up very quickly, Mayor, to advise for the benefit of those listening in that the potential next step from here is that Telstra, as the applicant, should they wish, may seek to challenge tonight's decision at the VCAT. And I'll just remind, as we often do, whether it's a builder or a developer, in this case a major corporation, that could be taking council to VCAT, we will defend our position strongly. We will engage the appropriate resources. We will stand up for our community at VCAT should we need to. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Item 5.3, Amendment C 124, Part 1, Public Open Space Zoning Corrections. There are no speakers. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Councillor Tom Melican. Can I please have a seconder? Councillor Craig Langdon. Councillor Tom as the mover, would you like to speak to the item? Councillor Craig as the seconder, would you like to speak to the item? Would any other councillor wish to speak? Okay. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Item 5.4, Belfield Planning Scheme Amendment C153. There are 3 speakers or submitters. All are against the item. And if I could ask CEO Alison Beckwith to read out the first submitter, Teresa Dominic, please.
Thanks, Mayor. This statement's been read on behalf of Teresa Dominic, part of Co-Housing Banyule and Co-Housing Australia. Co-Housing Banyule welcomes the panel's support for concerns in our submission, but is disappointed that it considered these were already possible within current controls. Our submission to Council's meeting on the 9th of December resulted in direction that deliberative housing should be part of the consideration of the Belfield site. We request additions offered in Council's panel submission 5th March to be included in Council's recommendation. Recommendation 1, objectives, add words deliberative housing. To deliver a high-quality integrated development that caters for a range of lot densities and housing choices, including deliberative housing that respond to and manage site features and constraints. Addition, circulation and access. Opportunities for shared car parking at a reduced rate for deliberative housing outcomes such as co-housing where clearly supported by a green travel plan. Alternative specific requirements in the land disposal process to give greater status to the Belfield design guidelines. Recommendation 2, that the EOI submission for the land disposal process include requests for how the proposal will include 1. More innovative forms of housing, especially for ageing in place and deliberative housing models that provide a strong sense of community, internal and external to the site. 2. Providing housing delivery typologies and tenure models that support affordable housing and living. 3. Providing housing that meets the long-term needs of residents, including ageing in place and supporting sustainable social, environmental and economic outcomes. And 4. Promoting passive design and Green Star communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. I'm going to ask Director of Corporate Services, Mark Gilio, to read out the second submitter, Maria Nechvatal.
Thank you, Mayor. Reading on behalf of Maria Nechvatal, West Heidelberg, and speaking against the item. As a founding member of Co-Housing Banyule and been on for 7 years, and a long-term active local community resident, I'm aware that local demand for community-led housing development continues to increase. I welcome the panel's support for the concerns in the CB panel submission, particularly the need for 1. Housing diversity to be considered more broadly, 2. Environmentally sustainable design principles to be given greater levels of importance, and 3. Flexibility in landscaping and car parking requirements. However, disappointed that the panel considered these were already possible within the current controls. This amendment on strategic redevelopment council-owned site provides for giving clear intent to the Belfield Master Plan guidelines. In their current form, C153 falls short of ensuring controls deliver the outcomes of a diversity of housing models, such as deliberative housing, including co-housing, and lack giving explicit direction for the land disposal process. I support recommendation 1 of Co-Housing Banyule presentation to this council meeting and the additions offered by officers in council submission to the panel on the 5th of March 2020. While I urge Banyule Council to strengthen the controls to ensure that the private sector delivers more innovative housing models, this could be achieved by including more specific requirements in the land disposal process. I support Co-Housing Banyule recommendation 2. This would provide more explicit direction for the land disposal process, give greater status to Belfield design guidelines, and importantly, in the assessment of the development proposals.
Thank you, Director Mark. And could I ask CEO Alison Beckwith to read out the third submitter on behalf of Anthony Lunken, please?
Thanks, Mayor. This statement's being read on behalf of Anthony Lunken from Heidelberg West. Madam Mayor, councillors and council officers, thank you for the opportunity to make the following comments on officers' recommendations in agenda item 5.4, Belfield Planning Scheme Amendment C153, panel report and adoption of amendment. Deliberative development inherently aims for excellence in environmentally sustainable design, ESD, which Council is committed to delivering in the Belfield development. Council has previously shown support, even encouragement of deliberative development by specifically including one form of it, co-housing, within section 5.1 postcode 3081 urban design framework, and has previously offered to include the term deliberative development in the development plan overlay schedule 8 for the Belfield development. Including the objective previously agreed between Council and Co-Housing Banyule in the development plan overlay schedule 8 to deliver a high quality integrated development that caters for a range of lot densities and housing choices, including deliberative housing that responds to and manages site features and constraints, would confirm for prospective developers that Council is serious about being open to a wide range of innovative solutions to achieving housing affordability, housing diversity and environmental and social benefits. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is an alternate recommendation to the papers. Can I ask a councillor read those out, please? Councillor Craig.
There's a new point 5 which states provides an update to the Belfield project which will be made available to the Banyule community via the Shaping Banyule website, I won't go through the name, as well as an email to all parties who made submissions to the Belfield Urban Design Guidelines and the Belfield Master Plan. But I have a few questions of the Director if I could. But once we get a seconder perhaps.
Sorry, yes. Okay, so you're moving that. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Peter Castaldo. Councillor Craig, you had some questions.
Through the Mayor to the Director, this has gone through the panel and we moved and acknowledged in the correspondence to it, or the submitters, that we did move amendments to what we wanted done. Now the panel reviewed that and they heard a submission from Co-Housing. Could you tell us what happened in a nutshell and what's the likelihood if we put them back in, whether get ministerial approval?
Director Scott.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, happy to clarify what happened when Council considered the amendment, the draft amendment, and the submissions from various parties, including Co-Housing Banyule. Council decided to ask for a ministerial panel, independent panel, to be appointed to consider the submissions and the draft amendment. But what the Council also said was, go away and see if you can negotiate an outcome before the panel hearing with the submitters to try and get to a solution to avoid the need for a panel. And what happened in those negotiations was there was an opportunity put forward to put an agreed paragraph in to address the concerns of Co-Housing Banyule, and that was put forward as on a without prejudice basis to address the issues of Co-Housing Banyule. Co-Housing Banyule said, yes, we think that's a great paragraph to put in, but we're still going to go to the panel anyway and try and get more. And at the panel, there was consideration by the independent panel of all of the issues, and in fact the independent panel said, no, look, that probably takes the amendment too far, what you had agreed with. Take it back to what you originally had and exhibited, because it gives a general approach to a wide range of different sorts of housing opportunities and housing choices. You don't need to identify a specific type of housing housing model or housing outcome. So the panel has come back and said, no, look, keep it more broad. In fact, there's lots of things in the planning scheme that says there's lots of different housing styles and types and approaches that can be achieved, and you should keep it in that broader way. And so what's been put as a recommendation tonight is that we go with what the panel says, keep that broad range of housing opportunity outcomes. Doesn't mean that deliberative or co-housing opportunities can't be considered on the site, and in fact they will be able to be considered on the site, and it's certainly a suitable and appropriate form of housing, but there was a wide range of other sorts of housing outcomes or models that could be achieved as well.
Thank you, Director. Councillor, did you have another question at all? Okay. Councillor Peter, as the seconder, would you like to... Sorry, you've got to go ahead.
I did ask you a long question though. Look, I totally support what the three submitters have put in here to be part of it. It has my total endorsement, but the panel has said we can do it in our current rules and whatever, and that's what we should do. To put it again, if it goes up to the minister, he'll just knock it back again. It's just semantics and words. But I just want to know, and I assume they might be listening in, that the three submitters, I fully endorse what they are trying to do, and if I have any say in it, and I have a group of 7 or 6 other colleagues I can got to convince when it comes up to tendering and all that, but I'll be certainly leaning towards that and do what I can. I know we have social housing as part of it, but I'd like to see co-housing, which is separate to social housing, also a different component to it. And being next to or near the new Belfield Community Centre, I think would actually give a great deal of benefit to them and the community centre. It's sort of feeding off each other. So I look forward to it. I've got a list of all the correspondence and all the meetings we had. I was going to add to it because I've had one little complaint, only from one resident. We have not consulted enough. I can assure you we have gone to enormous length, an enormous number of meetings. I think I attended every one of them for 18 months, and we consulted extremely well. whether, and that's again why I moved that amendment, those who did put input in, I wanted to make sure they know they have been considered. We're also considering in the near future a newsletter out of what we're doing in Ford Park. So I'd like that added into it at some time, telling they're right next to each other, so people are interested in both. So I look forward to that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Peter is the seconder. Would you like to speak to the item? Okay.
Once again, we've had a number of community participants, and the emails aren't just short, they're very lengthy, considered responses, and really trying to convince us to do the best for our community as possible. Deliberative housing is one of those different variations on standard housing offers provided to the marketplace, and enables different groups of people to come in and participate in the housing market in a different way, and I'm fully supportive of that. And we've built some assurance or opportunities and encouragement for it to play a part in this development, and I'm fully supportive of that. To give financial advantage to one group of people in our community over others is something, a hazard that we must be careful of, and therefore, from my perspective, I think we've, and taking advice from the panel, I'm comfortable with the approach and the panel's advice on this, but there is a community group promoting a collaborative design approach and offer a component of deliberative housing to here. So if you are interested in that, do get online and participate with that group. But otherwise, I'm supportive of this and the extensive consultation that Councillor Langdon has mentioned.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Tom?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's lots of different words used, co-housing, social housing. I think about the Murundaka example where it's a co-housing where it wasn't really a development, it developed a community, and it's been very successful, and it just highlights that there are a very diverse community out there. They need diversity in housing style, and some people actually enjoy that communal type living where they share resources. It's slightly cheaper to buy into, but it's cheaper to live in. And that's the opportunity we're trying to provide here. I take it on board what's being said, that we're trying to include that into this planning scheme, but the Minister has said no. The Minister has said that it can be incorporated as well. We'll take that on board, but I do fully support the Murundaka or the co-housing model because it has been extremely successful and built community. And people that live there are extremely happy living there. It's a very relaxed, very sharing, very caring lifestyle, and we should be encouraging that. And it's interesting now we read about, over COVID-19, how developing public housing, social housing and co-housing is one of the main ways that we'll be able to build better communities, provide homes for everybody, and I think what COVID has highlighted is that the way we treat everybody is incredibly important, and we have to make sure that everyone in our community is looked after, is protected and supported. And we can't just let people live on the streets, because that is detrimental not to them but to us as well. And that's what this COVID-19 is proving, that we need to look after the most vulnerable in our community, and this is a great opportunity for this city to show leadership and to do exactly that. So I'm fully supporting this process. I would have liked to have included some more things in there around the co-housing model, but I will take it on board that the Minister said no, that the framework will accommodate that anyway. But I think this is something this council, we will be able to look back in years to come and say we were part of that decision-making process that built these variety of housing styles, and we were part of that, building those communities. So I'm looking forward to the next step in this process.
Thank you, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay, Councillor Craig, as the mover, would you like a right of reply? All right, I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Item 7.1, Belfield, decision following notice of intention to sell land for a residential development and notice of intention to lease land for social housing. There are no speakers to this item. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Councillor Craig Langdon. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Rick Garotti. Councillor Craig, would you like to speak to the item?
Extremely briefly, you can see the first item, and this is all the previous times that come up to council, so it certainly has not been hidden from anybody what we're doing. And just looking up the email from the staff member as well, and over 5,000 letters have gone out on this project as well. So we have public consulted, and I endorse the report.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Rick, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of brief comments to say that very proud to be part of a council that is able to use all of the levers that are available to us to drive great value for our community. So obviously financial through the budget, but here we're using our levers as an owner of land, and we purchased this land a number of years ago, but also from a planning perspective, to get up a terrific development that incorporates a brand new community centre, a community farm. We understand up to 30 social houses, and then a variety of housing, and it could include co-housing when we go through the expression of interest process, but a variety of housing for residents in Banyule. And I just think what a great time for us as a council to be doing this. Right at a time where we need to be supporting jobs and supporting housing. We're rolling a project right off on the tracks and getting it underway. This is going to provide a massive boost to social housing in our area and a massive boost to local jobs and local employment at a time when we need it most. So really excited to be part of a council that's doing these things. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Craig, as the mover, would you like a right of reply? Okay, I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Item 7.2, 162 Main Road, Lower Plenty, proposed lease. There are no speakers to this item. Can I have a councillor move a motion, please? Councillor Mark Di Pasquale, is there a seconder? Councillor Tom Melican. Councillor Mark, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you very much, Mayor. I thought you were going to move this item, although you're in the chair, so you can't. I thought you were going to second. This is in your ward. This is, look, very good for the community. This is a proposal that will benefit many in the community of those who are vulnerable. And in this time, I mean, this is exceptional that we're able to be able to extend this lease to a 10-year lease. So what will happen here for the community to understand is that the lease being extended will mean that this facility can have professionals who are employed, not by council but by an external source that's already secured. They can be employed over a longer period of time. And the reason why we've had to go down this path, Mayor, is because the funding wouldn't have come if it was just a short lease like we normally do with our facilities. So we had to lengthen out the lease to make sure that these professionals could have a secure place to come and do their work for those less vulnerable or more vulnerable in our community. So very happy to be moving this evening on your behalf. Thank you.
Thank you very much, councillor. Councillor Tom, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the item?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, if I would have held back if I had known you wanted to second. Sorry about that. Yeah, very pleased to second this tonight. A great initiative by a great group of people trying to help some people that have served this country well. Why wouldn't you support this? And given what has happened recently, it just highlights the need for these sort of facilities more than ever. And very pleased to support this tonight. I wish these sort of services weren't required, but they are. And it's very, very good that this council has these facilities available where we can make them available for these groups so that they can provide those vital services for these people. So I'm very happy to support this tonight.
Thank you very much, councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Mark is the mover. Would you like to no? Okay. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Item 7.3, Assembly of Councillors. There are no speakers. Councillor Mark moving. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Tom Milliken. Councillor Mark, would you like to speak to the item? No. Councillor Tom, would you like to speak? Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Now put that in motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 7.4, Quarterly Financial Management Report, March 2020. There are two speakers or submitters. Our first submitter against is David Mulholland, and our CEO, Alison Beckwith, will read out his submission. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. This is being read on behalf of David Mulholland from Heidelberg Heights, who's speaking against the item. I've done some analysis of the quarterly financial report in order to understand the COVID-19 support package promoted by Council. The numbers are as follows. Estimated net cost impact of the COVID-19 to 30th of June 2020, approximately $985,000. This is different to the cost of Council's economic support package, which shows financial impact to 30 June 2020 at $59,000. It is difficult to reconcile this support package, but partly may consist of the following: rental income of $289,000, special rates and charges scheme of $153,000. In any event, Banyul's Council's COVID-19 support package is pathetic. Basically, economic support for ratepayers is a charade. All the Council is doing for ratepayers is waiving interest charges for people with financial hardship. I presume Banyul Council is not budgeting for any waiver of rates, even though it's their obligation to offer waiver of rates under 171A of the Local Government Act 1989. Wavering interest will not cost the Council much. The estimated total additional rates and charges is $195,000 for the financial year, proves this is the case. The overall estimated net cost impact of the COVID-19 as $984,000 includes a myriad of variances, with most not relating to Council's support package. Many negative variances have been offset by budgets which have consistently been padded during the 4-year term of this Council. Much of the unfavourable income variances relate to the downturn in economic activity and not the support package. This report highlights the failure of the Council to act on the COVID-19 economic and health crisis. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alison. And on behalf of Kevin Hill, Director Scott Walker will read his submission.
Thanks, Mayor. This is being read on behalf of Kevin Hill of Ivanhoe against the recommendation. 1. Forecast surplus at 30th of June 2020, $7.88 million. This looks very good to financially inexperienced readers. However, the true financial situation is total forecast income $156.962 million, less expenses $149.082 million, gives surplus $7.88 million. Included within the revenue total is $7.514 million of non-recurrent capital grants and contributions, which must be deducted from the total surplus of $7.88 million to get the true underlying surplus of just $366,000. This should be clearly noted by Council in its report recommendations to ensure all ratepayers are not misled. 2. COVID-19 Council Support Package Financial Hardship Policy 2020. Council appears to have ignored Section 171A of the Local Government Act, which requires Council to act in good faith and allow applications for waivers of rates and charges for people in financial hardship. Bragg believes Council's financial hardship policy does not comply with the Local Government Act, despite Council stating the contrary. Council's intention of providing virtually no support to ratepayers is discernible from the following figures in the financial report. Rates and charges. Annual budget, 103.268 million. Forecast, 103.463 million. Increase, 195,000. Council can afford to offer much more support to Banyule ratepayers and residents. Bragg exhorts Council to do so. 3. Employee benefit expenditure. Amazingly, Council has, in the face of the COVID-19 emergency, discovered it has non-essential services that it can now dispense with, yet it bizarrely persists in its voracious collection of rates that would be required to fund the non-essential services it will now not deliver. At the same time, Council proposes a totally inadequate COVID-19 support package to ratepayers and local businesses. EFT budgets have been consistently gamed to provide justification for constantly raising rates each year. Actual employee numbers, EFT, have grown disproportionately to the essential services needed by ratepayers, and this is now clearly substantiated by Council's own response to COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Director Scott. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Oh, Councillor Rick, you have a question? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a question through you of the appropriate officer, and for the benefit of those who are listening in or viewing in this evening, but just clarification of what the profit and loss impact is of the support package that was adopted by Council at the last meeting, and 2, what the forecasted cash flow impact is in terms of the rates deferment component of that economic support package. Question to appropriate officer.
Okay. Director Mark, I think that one's for you.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Could I just get the first question repeated, if that's okay?
Yeah, that was the profit and loss, impact on the profit and loss of the council associated with the economic package that was resolved at the last council meeting. I believe it was in the order of $2 million, but clarification is being sought.
Yeah, that's correct. So the majority of that is forecast to be included in next year's budget, which will be considered and to go out to for public consultation next council meeting. Approximately $500,000 for this financial year, with $1.5 million of the following financial year is the figure. So you're looking at around about $2 million as the first wave of support, economic support for the community as well as the local businesses. And with the financial or the revision of the financial hardship policy, allowing the community to apply for a deferment of rates for up to a 15-month period, that's probably going to defer cash payments to council in the order of probably up to around about $25 million or thereabouts, depending on the applications sought by the community, at which time they won't get charged interest for that full 15-month period. So it'll all depend on how many of the community actually take up that option to apply for hardship.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Craig, you have a question.
Point 2 of the second speaker raises an aspect I'd like clarification. COVID-19 Council Support Package Financial Hardship Policy 2020. Council appears to have ignored Section 171A of the Local Government Act, which requires Council to act in good faith and allow applications for waivers and rates and charges for people in financial hardship. Could I have the Director explain what we are doing on that front and and how we are meeting within the Act?
Director Mark, I think that's yours.
So through you, Mayor, What the revised policy was looking at was allowing the community and local businesses to defer their rates payment, given the impact of the restrictions on the community and local businesses are still relatively unknown, although it's obviously certainly having a lot of financial impact on parts of the community. There's other parts of the community that aren't suffering as much. Therefore, under the Local Government Act, Council have or may defer rates for ratepayers, and that typically happened under the previous financial policy or hardship policy where rates were deferred. However, they were still charged interest for that period of that deferment. With the new policy, if they meet a certain criteria, we'll defer those rates without any interest penalty for up to a 15-month period. Having said that, we still do recommend that those who go on that deferment of rates still make some sort of payments or go on a payment arrangement to as part of smoothing out that over the year. In point 2, there's an opportunity for councils to waive rates under financial hardship. It's part of the Local Government Act. It doesn't compel council to include that or offer that. It suggests that council may, or gives the council, I guess, the legal right to offer that to the community. It's not a given, but they may offer that to the community as part of further financial hardship, which council will consider and had resolved on the 6th of April to look at further opportunities for supporting the community and local businesses, and that work is being done at the moment and may include something like a waiver of rates under financial hardship.
Thank you, Director. Did any other councillor have a question at all? We move on. Okay. Can I have a councillor move a motion, please? Councillor Rick Garotti. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Craig Langdon. Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll make a couple of brief comments. So certainly the papers highlight the challenging financial situation that the council faces given COVID-19. As is transparently highlighted in the papers, the forecast is underlying forecast is 366,000, which is effectively break even. And as is highlighted in the paper, the forecast expenditure of 594,000 for our COVID response isn't factored into that forecast, though it will be coming into the next April report coming up to councillors. That means that we're in a deficit territory, and we haven't been in a deficit territory as a council in a long time. And I'm very pleased to be part of a council that has turned the ship from the days of debt and deficits of times gone by. But what it does highlight is that we're in difficult financial circumstances associated with the economic pressures that this council's facing due to COVID-19, but also the support that we've put in place. As the Director highlighted, in terms of direct support, $2 million was resolved at the last council meeting. And in terms of economic cash flow support to our community, we're forecasting that to be about $25 million. Now, this council at our last meeting was very reluctant to put a figure on our economic support package, unlike other councils that went out there and said we're doing 5 million, we're doing 10 million. I'm happy to put a figure on it tonight. We're doing a $27 million support package in terms of direct support and cash flow support to our residents and ratepayers when they need it. And on top of that, when we come back with the budget in the next council meeting, we're looking at further mechanisms for direct support. And that will most likely include a waiver of rates for those in our community who most need it. I'm really pleased with the massive economic and financial support package that this council's delivered. And the support, the feedback I've received on that so far, Mayor, has been quite telling. I've had a ratepayer in Watsonia contact me and just explain how quick and easy it was for them to access the ability to defer their rates for 15 months. I've had a business based in Heidelberg West where their tenants are struggling to pay them. They've been able to jump online and immediately access that 15-month deferment. We've received an overwhelmingly positive response from neighbourhood houses and community groups about the immediate stimulus and support we're providing them. So we're getting on with the job and providing support to our groups and businesses and communities when they most need it. But as a council, and I'll wrap up soon, we know that there's more to do. And that's why, in the context of the budget and in a measured, responsible way where we're not reacting, as part of our budget process, we'll be looking at the second wave of support to our community. So I'm very pleased with where we stand and very pleased to be working with a group of colleagues that act quickly and decisively, but also measured, and making sure that our support is targeted on where it's needed most in our community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Langdon is the seconder. Would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I totally endorse what the Councillor Garotti has said, and we're doing remarkable things, and we're going with the flow. We're trying to see what's happening next so we can address it, which I think is the wisest thing to do, instead of just coming out and bang, this is what we're doing. I noticed the two speakers, and the first speaker didn't mention Bragg, but he's well known to this council as being the president of Bragg. The second person mentioned Bragg, and that's the emphasis I wish to raise. I'm aware that Bragg is running a campaign out there critical of this council. And the first speaker mentioned collectively, not individually, that we were pathetic and it was all a charade. I don't think what Councillor Garotti pointed out is a charade by any stretch of the imagination. Bragg has to understand that we do things our way, not the way they want to. And I think the way we're doing it is far wiser than their one-off reaction that they want us to do. And to say what we're doing is pathetic or a charade, I think personally would be condemnation of this council. But I'm ignoring that because I think Bragg is a very closed group. They said at the VEC meeting they won't tell us how many members they've got. They won't even tell the VEC how many members they've got. So how can you judge those comments from an organisation that is basically a hidden group that people can't join? Now, if they want to be open, that's fair enough. I'm not attacking the individual, I am attacking the organisation. It's a ruse, in my opinion. And I think what this council is doing is a wonderful job.
Thank you, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would like to make a few comments. I saw Councillor Malikan's hand go up, Councillor Costello's hand went up, so I think we're going to get a few speakers on this evening. Mayor, look, I think it's important to understand for the community that the representatives that are sitting here, the 7 of us, have their best interests at heart. And to prove that, I think it needs to be understood, and what I've been hearing a lot, speaking to people, that this coronavirus issue that we're all going through, social distancing, etc., and we don't know for how many months, Mayor, as well, there's going to be debt racked up by government. You know, how is, you know, and a lot of people throw out lines like, oh, you know, our kids and our grandkids are going to be paying for this debt, you know, in generations to come. Look, I don't know about all that, Mayor. I don't know the figures with regards to federal government and state government and how much debt is being accumulated day by day, but what I do know as a representative for the Banyule community to sit on this council, to make sure that this council is responsible and the officers are responsible in the decisions they make. The budget is running okay. We're at break even. We have a lot of money in the bank. We have done this over the last 4 years, particularly with rate rises only at the mandatory 2% or the capped 2%, so no overburden of the community. We're ready for anything that comes along, and we know that there will be impacts financially as we move through the next few months. But we do have the reserves to take care of these, and we are looking at them responsibly. So we're not just falling into debt, we're not borrowing. We will come out of this, and the community should understand that this council won't have any new debt as we come out of this. we still have plans to pay off some further debt next year as well, Mayor. So, you know, that's telling. And it's telling in a climate where I heard on the news today, Mayor, that NAB stock is down by 50%. You know, that's people's super. The government is telling people to take out $10,000 if they need to for hardship out of their superannuation. You know, that's money that was higher before, and if taken out now and the market goes up over the next 5-10 years, that's taken out at a low point, Mayor. I don't see how that is fair. We see the all ordinaries down by 30+%. Businesses, effectively, other levels of government are struggling to keep things afloat. And here we are, because we've got the foundations and we've set them, we're floating quite nicely. So we have the capabilities that if anyone out there has hardship, if anyone needs help with their rates, any expenses, etc., call up council, call up the officers, and we do have the plan in place. And it will continue on, and it will actually increase, as Councillor Garotti has said. So thank you for the comments already this evening, and I welcome some further comments by other councillors. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Peter Castaldo.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to thank officers and the executive team, our CEO, and everyone that's contributed to the collective effort in working together to provide the best relief, to provide that to a targeted group. We're doing some reports to look at how we can continue to do that in stage 2. As Councillor Garotti articulated, to kick this off, we're contributing over $27 million of financial assistance in different ways. There's many different ways we can do this. There's many ways that we will be continuing to do this over the next 6 to 12 months. We have found savings in some of the activities that Council are providing to our community. That's absolutely critical in this situation. Some of those savings are in areas that we can adjust the level of service to a degree and try and accommodate some of this expenditure on those that really need it at this time. We've had a number of community groups reach out to us, and they're telling us about who needs help, organisations that are closing down, food share. There's a whole bunch of different services and community groups that are in conversations with us, with our staff at all different levels. And I've got nothing but positive responses back from our community when they have reached out to Council and asked for something, or are in the process of working towards delivering services to the broader community. So I'm fully confident that the collective efforts of people at all levels in our council working together are delivering a good quality service to our community. And we don't know what's going to come, but I believe that the ongoing contributions of our community that are actively participating constructively with us, providing us with ideas and support and collaborative partners in this effort, I think we'll come out on the other end of this a better, stronger community. So please continue to provide your ideas and tell us what's happening as a resident, as a ratepayer, what you're experiencing out there, and how we can continue to support you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peter. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Tom.
I'll say a few words. Yes, what we passed on the 6th of April was the first step. That was to get urgent aid out there to assist our traders, our community groups. The second step will be the budget. And as we've noted on the 6th of April, we delayed the budget, and we've considered that carefully, and we're still considering it because it will be a very important budget. And as it's been pointed out, this virus has had a massive impact on our economic activity. There's been an economic downturn, and for someone that has retired, that relies on their superannuation funding, and as Councillor De Pasquale said, bank shares have halved in price, and I noticed that the NAB announced an interim dividend of 30 cents, which was last year it was over $1. So this has impacted many people. It has impacted me greatly, and I'm certainly not a wealthy man. But I will pay my rates cheerfully this year because I can afford to pay my rates. And I'll pay them because I know by paying my rates, I will support the services that our community needs. By paying my rates, I'll support the community groups that desperately need our support now. And I know by paying my rates, this council is using those rates to generate employment right across the city. And for those reasons, I'll happily pay my rates this year, because in doing so, I'll provide assistance to those who need it the most, and I'll make sure that this council can recover from this and this community can recover from this virus. So it's all very fine for these people to demand this and demand that. We need to be responsible, and that's what this council is doing. And I believe the budget we put out will be responsible, it will respond to the people that need it the most, and it will lock in the recovery that we all desperately need. So, fine for people to make comment, but please, in this time when this is so drastic and so many people are suffering, I think we need to support each other, not just criticise each other.
Thank you, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like a right of reply?
I might just sum up by saying that, very proud to be part of a council that has moved in its first phase a package of support that is valued to the community of $27 million. And as I said, we're reluctant to go and put a figure on that as a council. We're not into showboating like other councils, 5 million, 10 million, but a direct assistance of 2 million immediate, 25 million in cash flow support to our residents and businesses when they need it the most, and we're going to come back and do even better with the budget. Really proud of that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Number 8, sealing of documents. There are none. Point number 9, notices of motion. There are none. Number 10, general business items. I believe we do have Councillor Craig has submitted a general business item. Would you like to read that out?
Not on the screen. On behalf of the City of Banyule, I think we should acknowledge and express our heartfelt sympathies to the tragic loss of 4 Victorian police officers last week. To the families and friends and fellow colleagues of leading Senior Constable Lynette Taylor, Constable Glenn Humphreys, Senior Constable Kevin King and Constable Josh Prestney, our deepest condolences. I think, to add to that, I know it's affecting all the police. I've seen many blue balloons, blue ribbons and all that. So that community support and even this general business item is to express how the community is behind the police. It is a tragic loss, the worst in their history. So it's basically saying, we are behind you. Keep on doing the great work you're doing.
Thank you, Councillor. Was there another general business item at all? That was it? Okay. Okay. Unofficially, just before I close the meeting for a consideration of a confidential matter, I personally have received several emails from our community thanking us for supporting them during the COVID-19 restrictions, and I have passed these on to my fellow councillors, and on behalf of my fellow councillors and the officers, it's our pleasure and our privilege to be able to help you at this time. Thank you for taking the time to write to us. So the meeting is now closed to members of the public for consideration of a confidential matter. So can I please have a councillor move for us to close the meeting? Councillor Tom Melican. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Mark Di Pasquale. We're closing the meeting to members of the public prior to considering confidential item number 11.1. A special meeting of council will be held next Monday the 4th of May 2020, and the next ordinary meeting of council will be held on Monday the 18th of May 2020. I now close the meeting at 8:40 p.m. Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening.